Welcome back to the Oscar Project Podcast, the show where I discuss Oscar-nominated films year by year. I am your host, Jonathan Eaterberg, and today I'm bringing you an instant reaction episode covering the nominations for the 96th Academy Awards that were announced this morning. Before I jump into the episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show in your podcast player and leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, make sure to follow the Oscar Project on Substack at theoscarproject.substack.com for more Oscar coverage. I'm going to start with some of the technical categories and work my way up to the acting, directing, and Best Picture nominations. So let's get started with the nominations for Best Visual Effects. The Creator, Godzilla Minus One, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. In the Best Film Editing category, the nominees are Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. For Best Costume Design, the nominees are Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Next up are the nominees for Best Makeup and Hairstyling: Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Society of the Snow. Moving on to the nominees for Best Cinematography: El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. In the Best Production Design category, the nominees are Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. For Best Sound, the nominees are The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest. Shifting over to music, the nominees for Best Original Score are American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. And for Best Original Song, the nominees are It Never Went Away from American Symphony, I'm Just Ken from Barbie, What Was I Made For from Barbie, The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, and Wajaje, A Song for My People from Killers of the Flower Moon. Looking at the short film categories, the nominees for Best Live Action Short Film are The After, Invincible, Night of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, and The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Up next is Best Animated Short Film: Letter to a Pig, 95 Senses, Our Uniform, Pachyderm, and War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. And of course, we can't forget Best Documentary Short Film: The ABCs of Book Banning, The Barber of Little Rock, Island in Between, The Last Repair Shop, and Nai Nai and Waipo. Moving back over to feature films, the nominees for Best Documentary Feature are Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, and 20 Days in Mariupol. Looking outside the US, the nominees for Best International Feature are The Teacher's Lounge from Germany, Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, and The Zone of Interest from United Kingdom. And finishing out this group are the nominees for Best Animated Feature: The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now we're getting into some of the biggest categories, starting with the nominees for Best Original Screenplay: Anatomy of a Fall by Justine Triet and Artur Harari, The Holdovers by David Hemmingson, Maestro by Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer, May December by Sammy Birch and Alex Mechanic, and Past Lives by Celine Song. For Best Adapted Screenplay, the nominees are American Fiction, Cord Jefferson, based on Erasure by Percival Everett, Barbie by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, based on Barbie by Mattel, Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan, based on the book by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin, Poor Things by Tony McNamara, based on the book by Alistair Gray, and The Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer, based on The Zone of Interest by Martin Amis. We're almost there, so hang with me while I give you the nominees for Best Supporting Actor. Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. And the nominees for Best Supporting Actress are Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. For the top acting categories, I'll start with the ladies. The nominees for Best Actress are Annette Bening, Nyad, Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller, Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. And the nominees for Best Actor are Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Colman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. And with just 2 more categories to go, the nominees for Best Director are Jonathan Glazer, The Zone of Interest, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. And finally, the 10 films nominated for Best Picture are American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. Now I know that's a lot, but there are just a few things to cover before I let you go. This year, the votes for the nominations came from across a record-setting 93 countries. Out of the 20 actors named across the 4 acting categories, 10 of them are first-time nominees, and only 3, Robert De Niro, Jodie Foster, and Emma Stone, are previous winners. 2024 marks the 5th consecutive year that at least one film nominated for Best Picture has been directed by a woman, and the 6th year in a row that a non-English language film has been nominated in the writing category and for Best Picture. Steven Spielberg receives his 13th nomination for Best Picture, and Martin Scorsese becomes the oldest nominee for Best Director at the age of 81. This nomination, his 10th, still puts him 2 behind the record holder for directors, William Wyler, with 12. Thelma Schoonmaker receives her record 9th nomination in the film editing category, while John Williams continues to add to his record nominations for original score, now at 49. His 54 total nominations, including 5 for Best Original Song, are the most for any living person, and second only to Walt Disney himself with 59. Hayao Miyazaki is now tied for the most nominations in the Best Animated Feature category with 4, alongside Pixar stalwart Pete Docter. It comes as no surprise that Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Killers of the Flower Moon led the way with 13, 11, and 10 nominations respectively. I was also pleased to see American Fiction and The Holdovers both receive 5 nominations, and overjoyed for Celine's Song and Past Lives receiving 2 nominations, including one for Best Picture. On the flip side, I was bummed that neither Wings of Dust nor Boom made the cut for nominations, but so happy for these teams to have achieved everything they did at the Student Academy Awards, and for having the opportunity to speak with them about their journey. I have a feeling we'll see both of them on these lists in the future. Some other notable snubs included Leonardo DiCaprio not getting an acting nomination for Killers of the Flower Moon, as well as Willem Dafoe for Poor Things. Dafoe is a bit more understandable since the film did get Mark Ruffalo nominated for Supporting Actor. Killers of the Flower Moon was also shut out of the Best Adapted Screenplay category, perhaps due to Barbie being classified as adapted, despite some consternation over this in recent weeks. Some folks will argue that American Symphony should have been nominated for Best Documentary Feature, but the one I did expect in that category was still a Michael J. Fox movie. And despite receiving a nomination for Best Documentary Feature, I was also hoping to see 20 Days in Mariupol up for Best International Feature. Napoleon seemed like a bit of a snub for Best Cinematography, as did Saltburn, but both of those films may not have been everyone's cup of tea. Along the same lines, I was hoping that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse would sneak into the visual effects category, and perhaps even Best Picture, but was shut out of both. Thank you so much for joining me for this immediate reaction to this year's Oscar nominations. Don't forget to check out my ongoing coverage on Substack at theoscarproject.substack.com, And consider subscribing so you get my Oscar content delivered straight to your inbox. The Oscar Project podcast is written and produced by me, Jonathan Eaterberg, with editing assistance from Joshua Eaterberg. Please join me next week where I will be reviewing all the interviews I did back in 2023 with clips from each author and filmmaker I spoke with. Until then, I hope to see you at the movies.